And we're back on another exciting episode of Starfleet Boy, where we have a casual and informal conversation about Star Trek. Today we're focused on Star Trek Lower Decks Crisis Point, the penultimate episode of this first season of Star Trek Lower Decks. And Michael, are you still playing STO while you're on with us, or did you finish your game?
No, I called it a day. I got about an hour and 45 minutes into my first ever STO session, and to be fair, the reason why I called it a day was because I was aiming to go about 90 minutes, and I kind of got to the point where I got a bit stuck. And I was like, you know what, instead of me just sitting here for 5 minutes just trying to work out how to turn the ship, I just thought, you know what, I'm just gonna call it a day. So and then I exited that, and then I saw a message from you going, hey, come talk about Crisis Point. And I was like, I'm there.
Excellent. So we already have from Fathery, best episode ever. Hello, Fathery. Welcome. Yeah. let's jump into it. Do you want to do the episode summary since you're our esteemed guest today?
I'll be absolutely delighted to do so. Okay, so after one screw up too many, Captain Beckett orders Mariner to undergo therapy. Therapy is not something that Mariner wants to do, so she decides that she is going to take out her frustrations on Boimler's intricately, masterfully compiled holodeck recreation of the crew, which she then reprograms to be a movie. And over the course of an action-packed, near half-an-hour adventure, Mariner is forced to confront her own demons.
That's very good. There you go.
There you go.
That's it. That's a really that should be the official summary on Memory Alpha. I love it.
There we go.
Chris is here. How are you doing? So I want to jump right in by asking you guys a question. Was that Antica in the beginning, the planet with the rats and the lizards? Do you remember the Solarians?
Don't look the same, but the rats do.
Are you talking about the TNG episode "Lonely Among Us"?
Yes,
because
I think it's that episode with the rats and the lizards.
I immediately, as soon as I saw them, I thought that the rats were the same aliens from Lonely Among Us. The lizard creatures, not so much, because I think the lizard creatures had more of a cobra kind of like.
Oh, you're absolutely right. They
did. But the rat.
I had the toys when I was a kid.
the rat aliens were spot on. Even the way he started talking. His first few lines, he had that kind of like lisp, like that kind of like hissing kind of sound that they used in that episode as well. I think that they're same aliens. That's my opinion. Anyway.
I think they are
the reptiles were a bit different though. The reptiles didn't have the Cardassian thing basically on the side.
So this would explain further their hostilities against each other though, because if the Anticans are like basically harvesting a cousin of the Selaans, let's say, like a cousin species, and so that's why the Selaans are like, we don't want to be around these awful people. I kind of like that this could be the Anticans and this could be their homeworld.
I think the Anticans are at war with those other reptiles from the Selaans, is it? They're at war with the Selaans. But these other reptiles, they're not Selaans. They're like reptiles that live on the Antican planet and they just harvest them.
Yeah, maybe the Anticans just have nothing but reptilian relationships. Maybe that's the thing.
That's brilliant. Now we know how to defend ourselves against the Cardassians.
Oh yeah, it's true. Just that would be great, like a Cardassian, the Antican Cardassian war. That would be amazing. Oh my gosh! Right away, we got some comments going on. We've got Starfleet Boy. I love how you get so many great guests on Lower Decks review and also Trek Lad. Apparently, wow. I hope there's not a real I hope that's not real. Come on. Trek Lad's the best ever.
He's just bitter that he's got to wait until September next year to talk to me.
I was wondering, wow, is it that? I'm honored I was like number 11. I still remember my number. I was wondering if that was the Gorn at the beginning of the episode. No, they were not the Gorn. We were just trying to figure out what they were. Maybe we'll find out one day. So Father also says these ain't the critters from Lonely Among Us, but that is what I thought when I saw the Rat Man statue. I think they are the Antikins. I don't know. By the way, that planet was called. I have it here's Antica. Oh, duh. The planet of the Antikins is called Antica. We're warp capable, possibly during the Federation. The lower decks aliens are pre-warp, I think. Well, they said that so I wondered about it because she says it's like a subsection of the prime directive. She's like, we're obligated not to interfere with your political or something like that. I forget what it was, but I wondered if these are in fact the Antikins. But oh well, I guess that was my big question about the little teaser, but we won't know until we know. Maybe Mike McMahon will tell us in his he does the Easter eggs video every week. I think it drops tomorrow, and so maybe we'll find out.
Or maybe we'll never find out. Sometimes it's nice to not find out. Sometimes it's nice to kind of go, "Ooh, is that the Antikins?" And Mike McMahon's just going to be like, "I will never tell." And it's yeah. I mean, us three, as soon as we saw it, we were like, they look like the Antikins. It's a cool thing to kind of get us thinking, isn't it?
It is. It's true. My mother and sister fight exactly like Mariner and and Freeman, so I thought that the mother-daughter fight was actually spot on. What was the name of the ship's psychologist?
Oh,
wait, what happened?
Alexandra Sandu is talking. Lol, I just dropped my head. And my head is full with Raised by Wolves. Yes, that's all I can think about. This episode of Lower Decks was great, but the only thing I can think about is the finale of Raised by Wolves. It blew my mind.
Stop it!
Stop
it! This is a Lower Decks show. Do you know what I have to say to you, Sean? You're being a pineapple.
Oh, okay. I'm ideally apologize. I don't know what that means, but
you don't remember this at the end that he was like, "You're being a pineapple" when
she gets angry,
and he makes all kinds of fruit references.
I am no pineapple, sir. I am a kiwi.
Yeah. Lower Decks is the fruit salad of Star Trek. I'm declaring it
a veritable fruit salad.
It's true.
The character's name is Miglimu, Dr. Miglimu.
I loved him. It's basically cheers. It's true. He's basically. I should have done more research. He's basically Howard the Duck. Like it was so great.
As annoying. Yes, you never want to see him again.
Howdy, Distress Free K. How's it going?
Star Trek Lower Decks has been putting out some of the best episodes of Star Trek since like Voyager. I mean, there are a few episodes of Enterprise that are pretty damn good, but
yes, I like how you skipped over. You're like, since Voyager,
and then you can see me just raging down here.
It's been 25 years for Sean.
You want to say Deep Space Nine? You don't consider Voyager that good?
I want to say right now, and I'm gonna wave my flag in the air. I'm gonna say that I'm enjoying Lower Decks, this first season, this collection of 10 episodes. I appreciate we've not had the full 10 yet, but these 9 episodes in consecutive order is the most fun I've had watching Star Trek week after week since Deep Space Nine. It's consistently fantastic, and this episode is just the perfect cherry on top. I don't know how next week's going to be able to top it, but the thing is they're like you said, Totti, there are episodes of Enterprise that are fantastic. There are a lot more episodes of Voyager that are fantastic because Voyager got the full 7 seasons, but every week of this show has been absolutely phenomenal, and
the cherry on top. The cherry on top for me is like this episode in particular was so innovative. It was a holodeck episode like we've never seen before. I mean, this is like a dream. Like it's super creative. But it's also like I feel like Star Trek always kind of gives the audience like a taste of if we had this technology, this is what it could be like. So the pad, manifested into the iPad, right? And we kind of already have that technology. But when the holodeck exists, movies are going to be different than like anything we've ever like experienced before, like an experience like the Vindicta episode or movie rather, sorry, you could have a real Star Trek movie experience. You could actually be in Star Trek 2 and take over Savick or take over, whoever you
don't
want.
even have to be a character. You can just be
Right,
in
you
the
can just
movie, but
watch.
the experience is enhanced because
like
you're in it.
Riker and Troy were doing. It was like for Enterprise, but this is way more exciting than what they were doing.
I mean, it's we've seen it before in TNG with the Barclay episodes. I can't remember the name of the episode, but the one where he copies the crew and has an adventure with them. We've kind of already seen Trek delve into holodeck role play, but we've never really seen holodeck role play with. From the perspective of almost using it as like a rehab tool, as a way for someone
also, yeah.
to kind of heal
as
themselves.
a therapy tool. Yeah,
We've seen films use kind of like hollow recreations and things like that. I mean, I remember there being a scene in Sunshine where they put you in a room and you sit around all this kind of like comforting hollow recreations and stuff. You could say that they also did it with Aliens when Ellen Ripley's sitting in that reception. There's like this peaceful kind of calm, tranquil scene, and then she turns it off. But this is Star Trek taking that and then turning that up to 11, which is really, really, really good. I want to say that, I think this episode is, I wouldn't say it's particularly groundbreaking. It doesn't do like many new things, but this is what the show has this huge sandbox to play with. The 54 years of Star Trek that's preceded it, the movies, the TV shows, and what Lower Decks has done really well up until this point has been able to kind of scoop all those up, use references, play with tropes and things like that. But this episode in particular, the writer of this episode gathered all of these cool little bits in the sandbox, chucked it together, and created some real magic. In 25 minutes, I had so much fun watching this episode.
It was really great.
When the bloody friggin' thing goes widescreen, all right, it's like complete fucking the Simpsons movie reference, like on the big screen, and then it just goes, and then you have the black bars, goes widescreen. You get the film grain come in. It looks like it's been filmed on actual film. You get lens flares. It's so cinematic. You get they overhype, like they make the warp effect just so intense. They add like a trail to it. They put lightning on it. There's like everything gets pumped up so much. They do the fly around for the ship, and it lasts like an eternity and some more just to make it comedic.
It was at once like the best homage to like the Star Treks that have kind of become, that have been made before this, but also the best satire of them. Because that's like, I thought of you in particular, Sean, because you're always complaining about the lens flares. And I almost felt like this episode was making fun of lens flares by making him so exaggerated and like, I know, right? But that's what I'm saying is like, it's at once making fun of it, but also writing a kind of a love letter to it. Because actually, like, for me personally, I don't hate lens flares, and the look of J.J. Abrams' Star Trek 2009 to me is awesome. Like I just love it.
Into darkness, you can't even see it. You have to wear sunglasses. I constantly rip on the Kelvin Timeline movies, but I will say two things. The Kelvin Timeline movies kind of brought Star Trek back, and I have to give that to JJ. Also, the style that he, like the aesthetics that he created for those films, have now defined modern science fiction. Like that is how modern science fiction is portrayed. If there's like an episode of a TV show there's time travel, they go to the future, they put lens flares everywhere. He's like defined how science fiction is on screen now, and that's a cool win for Star Trek, I guess. So I'll give him that. But I love the way they just mock that overtly here. Like, oh, let's put lens flares everywhere. But it's not done in a mean way. They never do it.
J.J. Abrams was already famous for lens flares before Star Trek, so I think he definitely brought
lens flares in Lost.
Yeah, well, not in the show Lost, but definitely like 8mm full of like lens flares and film grain, and like some of his. I pretty much almost. I can't think of. Maybe I'm retro conning.
He knows how to do them though. That's the thing. J.J. Abrams places his camera in a way, and he uses like reflective surfaces, and has like the surface reflect onto the camera, and it makes sense. Whereas a lot of shows, a lot of TV shows don't know how to do this. What they do is they just hold something up that like reflects onto the camera, and there's like a lens flare, even though there's technically nothing reflecting in that scene, and it makes no sense. It's like you just wanted something to shine on the camera, and it doesn't work. But he knows how to direct lens flares, at least.
I think it's funny. Once I was watching Star Trek Discovery and I didn't realize this, there was like a space particles or whatever, and I actually thought my glasses were dirty and I cleaned them. Like I paused, I went and I cleaned them, and then I like came back and I was like, oh wait, it's not me, it's intentional. But yeah, I know what you mean. It is definitely overdone at this point, but like I just love that this episode in particular was at once making fun of all those tropes and then at the same time also loving on them, because they are like part of what's the charm of those things in a way. Chris says that Barkley did use the holodeck as therapy. I would say he used it as in a self-medicating way, perhaps, but I think he definitely used it more for pleasure.
More as a drug almost.
Yeah, perhaps.
He gets addicted eventually.
More for over recreation. He definitely overuses it. Really is true through everything. Oh, maybe, sorry, I butted in on a private conversation. You guys love to catch up on our stream. I love it. Here we go. Lower Decks is extremely self-aware, lens flare and all. This is true.
I think it's just more of Lower Decks. It's self-referential. It's very meta. Breaks the fourth wall all the time, and it's not afraid to poke fun at some of the, some of the visual aesthetic of what's come before. It's definitely not afraid to poke fun at some of the characters, and I love that this show exists. I know that there are some people that don't, but they've probably seen 5 minutes of the show and made their decision on it. I think those people are missing out tremendously right now, because 9 episodes in.
Ruben, I'm looking at you. Ruben.
Watch this show.
The show
and the doctor and Emma.
Like, the show is not stupid. That's the thing. This episode in particular, for example, just as one example, took the time to make Tendi not only offended, but mad at Mariner, and basically disappointed in her for doing this whole simulation and being this way. And it's so out of character for Tendi. There was a moment in one of the previous episodes where Mariner grabs the orb, like the ball, and says, oh, we got to put this ball, like put it in a canister, and Tendi kind of goes along with it. And you're like, that doesn't feel like Tendi's character to go along with Mariner. But then you're like, I guess it's just a small thing. And here, when Mariner takes it too far, Tendi's like, I'm out. I can't do this. And so she leaves the holodeck, and she's just like, the show is not stupid. It knows how the characters need to be treated. It knows how the universe needs to be kind of treated, even if it does, I suppose, subvert the expectations to a certain extent. And so I appreciate, it's very well written. I don't. There are certain things that, like last episode, I called out for being lazy, that kind of stuff. But like generally speaking, I think it's very well written. And this episode is an example of that.
I think this episode, I've been saying it on my own live streams recently, is that you're getting very episodic episodes, but if you're watching it from episode 1 to the final episode, there is this overarching narrative, there is character development, but at the same time, the development doesn't require you to watch previous episodes, which is quite a skill. And Tendi, put yourself in her position. She's watching her friend massacre her other friends, and yes, it's in a holodeck environment, but it's still the sequence with Shax and blowing him up and being so kind of nonchalant about the whole thing. Anybody in that position is going to turn around and say, hey, you're going too far, you're losing yourself. And Tendi finally reached that kind of breaking point. Obviously, Boimler was at that breaking point in episode 1. Tendi, being this happy-go-lucky, I love everything, ultimate enthusiasm, had finally reached that point where she's like, Mariner, you're
point.
you're unhealthy. You're unhealthy. You need to, and Mariner's doing this for what she thinks to be recreation and therapy at the same time. And obviously, it kind of leads to her realizations. It's really, like you said, Totti, it's well put together. I will say this, it's a stupid show, but it's intentionally stupid, but it's written really smartly. It's and that's the point. You can have a lot of fun with this show, but there's deeper meaning underneath it, and that makes it makes it quite a thing.
We find out that the Orions are capitalist, hyper-libertarian gangster pirates. So if anyone was ever wondering what the Orion system was, because I haven't seen all of Enterprise yet, and I know we get a lot more Orions, but this is basically what it is. We also find out that they've only been reformed for 5 years. So
I don't
like
believe that.
Tandy, I like
That's her interpretation.
Yeah, no.
She's
She's got rose tinted glasses. That Orion crime syndicate is vast and far reaching, and is continuing to operate. You can't
Family.
shut that down. You can't shut
Her
that. Her
family
dad,
is
her
the
dad's
worst.
the head of it. Yeah, her dad's the head of
Kidding
it.
me? God damn. Her mother is just selling people. She's selling Bajorans all the time.
That's why as soon as they said slave, she was like, no. Let's cool that down. There's some home truths there. There's some secret home source going on.
It's true. It's true that the Ferengi are also only reformed for like the last 5 years or something like. Not maybe not 5 years,
Ferengi
but
not reformed. There's a
No.
couple of Ferengi that are part of the Federation of Starfleet, but just generally speaking, the Ferengi are like, nah.
Ferengi are capitalistic pigs, and we love them.
They're amazing.
I did like that scene that was very gory, which Lower Decks is not shy from, but that's when Tendi has it and she like actually leaves the holodeck, which was pretty
Go
powerful.
full blood, and this is the second time they did it, but they do it in the holodeck. This is both times they did it in the holodeck, and it's like, okay, I can see how that's justified. I love how it kind of fades off her as she leaves the holodeck, which is great.
Yeah. I like. Yeah, it's when you get any deaths as well. I mean, I liked. There were a lot of kind of callbacks to some of my favorite Trek, which is probably going to boil Totti's blood. But obviously, there's a lot of callbacks to the Wrath of Khan. There are mentions of the Undiscovered Country. So there's a very kind of Nicholas Meyer heavy in references this episode. But there are references to all sorts. I mean, Kelvin timeline with the lens flares. Did you guys notice when the shuttle was approaching the Cerritos that the sound of the shuttle was the same sound that they used in the Kelvin movies?
No, I did not notice
Yeah,
that.
it's the same sound. But the musical cue, as soon as you get the reworked version of the Lower Decks theme, but with the with like James Horner's kind of
exactly.
Oh, I lost it. I absolutely lost it.
But with the best part of that gag is that like it's they were overdoing it with like all the close-ups and this ultra wide lensings, but the spin, and with the music, and then it's just like the Cerritos is just spinning and spinning.
It was
just crying like.
I've watched this episode 3 times now. I've watched that sequence alone at least 20, and every time it gets a rise out of me. Watching just Billups, his reaction, like the first kind of like tear in his eye, and then like the second bit when he's just like overwhelmed, and Ransom's like, "All right, man, all right." I'm there for it because you do the same thing. Ship porn addiction is a real thing. It's the reason why I've watched it 20 times. I've had to change my pants 3 times today, and it's just a thing of beauty. Absolutely loved it, but the music as well, tremendous.
We get a lot of
the humor of like I don't know how to, like we were talking about the joke last time where the Andorian goes, "They're scanning us." "Oh no, they're not. They're scanning us." "No, they're not." And I said that wasn't very well done. Like the execution of that, in my opinion, was poor because it was just annoying. This is that same humor but done better.
See,
they push it and push it and push it, but like this time, I don't know. It was better done. I loved it.
It's humor in repetition. It's the law of freeze, isn't it? Usually the law of freeze, and I think they pushed that with the Romulan scanning. I'm with you that it went on a little bit long, but I still found it to be a humorous sequence. But yeah, it's basically just repeating and exaggerating. Exaggeration is obviously a cornerstone of comedy. And
Family Guy loves doing this. They drag out their jokes until it just like wears you down, and then you just like, oh my god, this is hilarious.
Another great gag with Billups was really highlighted in this episode, and I really liked it. But I love
eating his soup.
Well, eating his soup, but also just the whole gag of like falling in love with Rutherford over engineering stuff, and then they're gonna run. In the holodeck version of him, like would make the decision to like run away with him, and I have to say I lost it completely when what's her name was like, Godspeed, you crazy beep. You know, like, it was just like, we know what she said. There's no doubt about it. And it was so funny. I just couldn't stop laughing. It was like,
I
oh my
also
gosh.
liked the really corny movie dialogue as well. Like, we can write that book together. Just like really over the top, macho, corny 90s action movie cliches. And they did that as well. And so there's, I mean, and also we got an Aliens reference with the "Get Away from Her, You Bitch," and there's
right.
For people, the one thing, my biggest issue with the show.
Speaking of James Horner scores, didn't he do the Alien one? So I think this is like kind of another little nod to James Horner. That's cool.
And I'm there for it. I would say I'd say the only concern is the. I mean, and this isn't a concern for people like us because, we're there for this show no matter what, right? It's Star Trek. We're gonna watch it unless it's Picard season 2. But it's but the thing is though, is the show might struggle to get over with newcomers to the franchise. We're talking like complete newcomers. A lot of the jokes are, people are going to, like the Zon reference. People are going to be like, "What's that?" if they've not seen any Star Trek. I mean, there are some Trek fans that are going to be like, "What does that mean?" Memory Alpha. But I do think that this episode put in some third-party references, like the movie references, the over-the-top action cliches, that I think would raise some laughs and some chuckles from people who don't know those more intricate Star Trek references. What do you guys think?
Outside of the online community, like in real world, I know more people that don't watch any Star Trek and love Lower Decks than people that watch Star Trek and watch Lower Decks.
But do they understand the humor though?
Yes, the same way like you would understand the humor of Rick and Morty without necessarily knowing all of the movies. You can watch the Mad Max episode of Rick and Morty and it's still hilarious or you can still enjoy it without necessarily knowing Mad Max. It's a real like you have more.
I think it's a cumulative on both ends. Like I think the show started out like very. I think the show like this is one of the things I really loved about the Warner Brothers Looney Tune cartoons was when I was a kid, so like half of the references just like went way over my head and I didn't understand like why my parents would be laughing so hard at some of the jokes because they were able to successfully layer slapstick humor for kids with like very intelligent humor, relevant to like adults, and so it worked on that level. And I think Lower Decks for me, I don't know, I can't say because I'm so immersed in Star Trek, but I would love to hear the opinions. I would really love to hear from people who are non-Star Trek fans who are just watching Lower Decks and really enjoying it because I think it does work on those levels. I think there's enough like just kind of what you said earlier, stupid humor to like keep you engaged. And if you like it and if you start and start wanting to like get into it more, it'll make more sense and be funnier. But that being said, I will say that like Lower Decks is already in a small universe because it's a sci-fi comedy show. So it's like already, there's already going to be a limited, I think, audience that can enjoy it in general. But I do think this has a wide appeal. I feel like it has a Star Trek 4 vibe to it where Star Trek 4 definitely, I remember this phenomenon actually because I lived through it, is that it drew people who I like used to make fun of me for Star Trek would then turn around and say, "Oh, I love that movie with the whales," and I'm like, "What?" Like it's always that movie.
We do love that movie with the whales. No, honestly, I know a lot of people that don't know Star Trek and don't care for it that love Lower Decks and they love it for what it is. Maybe they don't get all the references the same way we do. Maybe it doesn't resonate as much with them. Like just in the previous episode when like he goes, "Oh, you know who I hate? The Remans." And like, "Oh, Remans are the worst." That is funny on so many levels because you Romulans enslaved them when you arrived. You took their sister planet and you made them slaves on their planet, and you think they're the worst. And it's just so funny on so many levels. For me as a Star Trek fan, they won't get that.
Yeah,
but it's still it still very much works. And like the people I talk to, they absolutely enjoy the show. As much as like sometimes like there's a lot of old science fiction that I might not know of and that they might reference in other shows. You still enjoy the show.
Yeah, I mean, I still think, I mean, you guys make good points. I think with the fast-paced nature of the show, the quippy dialogue, likable characters, I think there's a lot for newcomers to like. I would be interested to see a bit more data to see, I think that people will laugh at things just because the way somebody says it. That's, you know, comedic timing and all that kind of stuff. But to really get the full kind of, you know, Trek experience, this is loaded with a lot of deep cut Star Trek references that will have us going, ha ha, they said that. Where if you're watching this, you know, and you have no, you know, this is your entry point into the Star Trek franchise, you know, you'll be laughing at things, but a lot of stuff will be going over your head. So
yeah, I agree.
Keep in mind, there's a lot of things in Star Trek that like we consider Star Trek, but that a lot of people don't even consider Star Trek, but that are part of science fiction now. Like Star Trek has established so many basic rules, and just there's a lot of
quoting
things.
Shakespeare.
I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of things. Like every time I see a movie or like a science fiction thing, I'm like, that comes from Star Trek, and they become tropes and they become things that just exist in science fiction in general, and they come from Star Trek. So we have like a deep connection to it. But a lot of people just think, oh, it's a play on this science fiction thing that happened in this movie or whatever.
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah, it's true. Ian wants to know who did the voice of the therapist in the episode. I kept on thinking it was John Billingsley. Oh, that's interesting. I think it's the same actor who did the Admiral in the episode, and that was the voice of the brain, and I can't remember the actor's name right now.
So I've got memory out from
brain. Oh, excellent!
I've got memory alpha in front of me. This guy is actually Paul F. Tompkins, and I knew coming in that he's actually the guy who co-hosts the Pod Directive, which is Star Trek
that's podcast. Right.
Yeah,
that's right. Oh wow, that's it.
Cheers. So there we go. Pretty cool.
Oh, that's
cameo.
Cool. That is a very cool cameo.
Yeah.
By the way, shout out to the Pod Directive. It's a great podcast. Like I like their chemistry a lot. I've heard the first 2 episodes. Is the third out? Did third drop yet? No, I don't think so. But
Tony Newsom is the MVP voice actor in this episode.
Yes,
I think. Yeah, Tony Newsom isn't like Mariner, right? Because
like she's doing a lot of other parts. You're saying, or just the way she voice acted. Period.
Just her performance in this episode,
gotcha.
hands down the best. I have no problem with voice acting in this show. Like it's always great, but she was really good in this, and like the way she like embodied, it was Mariner embodying Vindicta. It wasn't just she's doing another character. You could feel that it was Mariner doing this character. It was really good.
I really liked Jack Quaid's performance as Boimler as well. I mean, Jack Quaid is a fantastic actor, great voice actor, and I really liked his B story in that he's trying to, you know, learn as much as he can to win the approval.
And
of the captain.
Secret that falls on his lap that was done so well, and like that the fact that he can't handle it, like that he just doesn't know what to do, was just genius stuff. Like I
didn't know that was a secret.
No, I didn't know either. But
I didn't even know they were going to play it that way.
No.
I thought about it.
Plus, in episode 1, fine. I was like, oh, this is an interesting, I suppose, plot reveal for us, the audience. But I didn't think it would have like any kind of impact in the show whatsoever.
It's because I think we took for granted that since we knew that everyone else kind of knew, but I wondered about it. Like it's definitely something that when I think back on it, that it's there. They don't really know. Allie's here, and she was here rather. I hope you're watching on the replay. Just a shout out to you. Thanks for joining us. That is the newly minted 25-year-old Trekkie. So thank you for being here. She also has her own live stream that she does and podcast. So check it out.
Just left a comment about highlighting deep moral and ethical dilemmas and concepts.
Oh, nice. The Star Trek universe is big enough to highlight deep moral and ethical concepts in some series while having slapstick comedy in others. I don't feel like it degrades Star Trek in any way. I agree.
Are people still making that argument though? Are people still saying that this isn't Star Trek? Are there still people that are, I mean, aside from those people, you know those people, but are there still people out there that have watched multiple episodes of Lower Decks that haven't been won over by it?
I'll only say for me as a former one of those people, one of the hardest things was like when you take something so serious, like I had so much invested in Star Trek and continuity and things like that. So when I already went through this with Enterprise, believe it or not, like way back in the day, like where it was just an affront to me, and then after years of everyone telling me how good Enterprise is, I finally caved in and just kind of like Sean made a face. I finally caved in and made it and watched it and felt so bad because I was like, you know what, like I let some Enterprise really deserved a fair shake, and I realized that they were trying to do something, and that I also realized that visual reboots are like a common practice among everything. Like it's just everything just it has to visually reboot at some point, right? So you can't really like, I think when you have a good story to tell, whether it's in whatever time period it is, sometimes you have to take the risk and go for it. And then Discovery did it to me again. Like it really, in the beginning, it really pushed on that same need, like that same need. And
yeah,
so
I would say though, sorry to interrupt. I would say that I don't want to. You're not one of those people, right? Okay, because I know Starfleet Boy that you don't attack and denigrate people's opinions. There are a lot of people. I mean, because you know it, Sean knows it. That I'm not the biggest fan of Picard now. But the thing is I'm never going to be one of those people that says, "Oh, it's not Star Trek," because it says Star Trek in the bloody title. It's a Star Trek show.
Right.
If there's a show that I don't like or an episode that I don't like, that's fine. There's plenty of other stuff out there, but
it's not Star Trek that I enjoy.
Yes,
That's what you say. It's still Star Trek. Oh my god.
Yeah. But I mean, this is a long argument, and it's something that I've ever since the Next Generation came out, people going, that's not Star Trek. It's something that we're always going to have in 2049 when Star Trek the next generation launches with Captain Kirk's great grandson. People are going to go, oh, that's not
the
Star
next
Trek.
Lower Decks generation.
Oh, yeah, all this, right? It's something that's never going to end, right? But the thing is I really want to know, because I think that we're at this point now where people want to save face. So I think there are people that secretly watch this show and they secretly love it, and they just don't want to say that they love it because they've already said that they don't like it. I don't know how you could watch this episode, take this episode in isolation, with all of the references and all of the loving details and attention to Star Trek that's come before it, how you could watch this episode and be like, oh, I don't like that. I just don't get it. I just couldn't, even if I didn't enjoy Lower Decks up until this point, I watched this, bang, I'm into this. I am into this. And it'd be really interesting to have conversations with some of those people. I'd really love to know, because it's just hate for hate's sake now.
I would love to get someone who is in this like movement to actually come on the show, because like I think it'd be fun. Actually, my friend Ruben fulfills this very well, and I hate to put you on the spot, Ruben. I know you're probably listening, but what it ends up, I want to talk to someone who's not my dear friend for like 30 years, because what happens with Ruben and I is that like we just think that either of us are being disingenuous, and we'll just go into a full-on fist fight on virtual, where I'm like, you're lying, you like this, what's wrong with you? And so I'll kind of get like that.
Well, Ruben hasn't seen this show.
That's true, but
Ruben complains.
He's still one of those people. Not to take this
the general status of Star Trek. He doesn't like how Star Trek is now. That's what he doesn't like.
Ruben came on the show for the first episode of Picard and like literally cried and said how it was the most beautiful thing that he'd ever seen. And then later he went a completely the opposite direction. I was like, you can't have pivoted so hard in the other direction, but he apparently did, and I trust him. He's my friend of 30 years, but like
that happened to me. I watched Remembrance, and I was like, this is absolutely fabulous. I mean, I had some issues with it because Patrick Stewart's acting was a little wonky, but I liked Remembrance a lot. I had a big problem. My biggest problem with Picard, not to try and take us too far away from what we're talking about, was basically it takes this big box of stuff, the big box of intrigue, rips the lid off. You can't put the lid back on because they've really fudged it and they've ripped the packaging, and it just dumps everything out onto your lap, and then it just kind of picks strings up and it ties them in knots, and it can't quite put everything together, and it's starting to kind of take risks with the internal logic of the universe. And by the end of it, you've got a kind of a disjointed, distended kind of rope that you've put together through these things, and you've dropped a load of stuff on the floor.
You and Ruben are going to get along really well if you're ever on a stream together. I'm going to be
one thing to that perfect analogy. There's another thing that comes with this big box of jumbled stuff. They also get distracted and watch a romantic relationship on their phone with Soji and Narek for like a million minutes. They're like, oh well, let's put that in there somewhere, and they try and fit that in as well, and that doesn't work because it's completely.
I'm gonna do one of these days. I'm gonna do a thesis film on Star Trek Picard season 1, and you guys will be interviewed for the thesis. And there, I've already declared it. It's coming. I'll be gracious and say that I'll let you guys have the last word on that for now, and we'll move back on to
okay, I want to say something. I need to say something. I know. Okay, this is a comedy show, right? Lower Decks is a comedy show, and I will say this: when I watch comedy shows, I don't laugh. I do not do that. The best comedy shows, my favorite comedy shows, give me a one laugh out loud moment.
You are a pineapple
per like season, all right? But I enjoy comedy shows because I sit there with a smile on my face throughout the whole episode. Like the best comedy shows, they make me smile, and I'm happy. They provide fun, not necessarily like genuine funny moments, but fun. And then when I watch like What We Do in the Shadows, I get one laugh out loud moment per season. Like I got it. I got it this episode.
Season. I love that. It's like one of the. I'm laughing constantly, and you're like one laugh per season on that show.
I laugh when I speak to you guys and when we have conversations and stuff. I don't laugh like just sitting in front of my computer alone, like a crazy man doing that. But but I did get a laugh out of this episode when, like, the final moment when goddamn Da Vinci says, "No, not on my watch." I was like,
"Not on my watch."
Build it up, whatever he says. Like, not on Da Vinci. I was like, "This is perfect.
Not today."
Today. And I was like, that was hilarious.
We have gas mask and tracker prizes in the audience, and he says LDS is funny. ... for some people, always being contrary. Gary, no, I know how you feel. I see 4 lights. Are there 4 lights? Where do you see them? Where are the 4 lights? Ali has another follow-up question. Great questions, Ali. Do any of you think that Lower Decks Pure Comedy Cell would ever work for a live-action Star Trek show?
Yes.
Yeah. Now that we've broken that cherry, so to speak, or apple. Yes, I totally.
Star Trek 4 is a comedy movie before being a science fiction movie.
Yeah, I think you can argue that.
I think it was PJ that said no, it's more science fiction. But there's not much science fiction in it. Like they go back into they do time travel at the end and the beginning, but most of it is just.
If I was being completely honest, I mean, and this is probably we'll never get this anymore because it's just not the way TV productions are made. Is I like Star Trek as a variety show. I like funny episodes. I like dark episodes, horror episodes, thrilling episodes, historical episodes. I like that kind of stuff. I like the variety that you can kind of get everything. But these days, obviously, with shows being greenlit one after another, there's a lot of creative license being handed around, and I think that's absolutely fantastic. I mean, the possibilities truly are endless with Star Trek right now, and I love the fact that we're getting a pure comedy show in Lower Decks. But I think that there is scope still within modern TV show storytelling that you could still have a variety show like what we got. I always think that Voyager, for some reason, always got variety better than any other show. I think that's my a huge praise for Voyager.
Might be able.
I think TOS might. I'm watching TOS again, newly watching it for the first time.
Horror show.
In it is so far. It is very horrific, but I think it also does that.
I've seen all of the stories are horror. They're all just.
It's true. They are kind of,
yeah, it's always like the most horrifying, horrific thing.
It's not as bad as Doctor Who, which had a monster every week. But you're right. Star Trek pretty much does have the original series does have a monster of the week vibe for sure. You're right.
Like even thematically, it's always so horrific. Everything's like a horror film. It's just that they liked the original series. Like it's very it's brightly lit and everything's very colorful and etc. But if you were to take every episode, redo them exactly as they are, but like dark and like have like dark music, set the mood, set the tone, like it could be just a straight up horror show, American space horror story.
True. Joseph, I wish the show was kind of like, I wish Discovery was like, it kind of is turning out to be lightly like that, but where how American Horror Story changes every season, like it's a whole different, that would have been neat if like we got like
what Brian Fuller wanted to do.
Is that what it was?
That was supposed to be the thing, yeah. And I still think that there's scope to. I mean, there's obviously unfinished treatments that Brian Fuller was working on. There must be, maybe just story concepts that could be fleshed out for season. seasons. I'd still like to see an anthology series in the Star Trek universe. I think that there's so many stories you can tell. The one thing that I've always wanted, I don't know how practical it could be, it'd be good to get your guys' thoughts on it, would be what about a Star Trek show that bridges the gap between Kirk and Picard?
I would love a show
90 years. Start it off just after the Kittimer Accords get signed, and you could have destabilized Alpha Beta Quadrant, and there's so much stuff you could do. So much.
Actually, the aesthetic and Discovery wouldn't be so badly placed in that era as well. Like in that, kind of, you could have kind of matched it up with that TOS TNG, TOS film era TNG thing, and been okay with it. I agree with that.
I still don't mind those upgrades. I still don't mind the visual updates at all. I don't really care about that. I mean, just as long as the storyline's good. I still think that if they would have just put Discovery, in Picard's timeline, it would have all made total sense and would have worked probably a little bit better. But
there's no reason apart from Burnham to place it where they placed it. There was no justification apart from the fact that CBS wanted to bank off the original series because they are convinced that the only thing they can sell is Spock's face. It's just
I think what it is. I think what it is though is it's CBS just don't take risks. They're not risk takers. They are cold, calculated businessmen. These people making decisions, with the exception of the current
Lower
creators.
Decks happen though? Because I feel like it is a risky show.
Now, but I think when they were launching Discovery and they had nothing to go on, no metrics at all, I think they were basically, they're not CBS higher executives aren't Star Trek fans. They just look at it for its commercial value. So when they're going, oh, how do we relaunch Star Trek? Then these fat executives are just going to go, well, Kirk, I know Kirk. Let's make a show about Kirk. We can't do a show about Kirk, Bob, because it's been done a few times. Oh, okay. Well, let's have it around.
You mentioned Bob.
Yeah. but that's basically this is basically just a fly on the wall. That's exactly how it went down, and they basically came up with this show.
The crazy thing is, it is technically more risky to make a show like that than it is to say, like, hey, let's hire a bunch of fans and just trust them to make the show. Just like hire a bunch of people that already know everything there is to know about Star Trek, that have already made Star Trek, and let them make the show. Because if you do that, if you make a show for Star Trek fans, by Star Trek fans, that is full of passion and full of love, then that passion and love will spread and share across the internet. The same way when you click on a video for no goddamn reason on the internet, but the person is so passionate about this thing that you've never cared about, you're going to watch the whole hour going, oh, wow, this is amazing. You become intrigued by it.
I think it's actually a combination of what the two of you are saying. Like, but I'd like to just go on record again, because I always argue for this, to say that, like, I think the majority of the people making Star Trek today are fans. Like, I don't think that's the problem. I do think that regardless of whether you're a fan or not, if your boss is overriding your decisions and like is giving you a tough time, like, not everyone's going to walk off the scene like Brian Fuller did when he didn't get it his way. Some people will make some people will acquiesce, and some people will try to compromise, and it doesn't always work out. So I do think it's a combination of, yes, the execs are not fans, but the fans are not always a Brian Fuller, or someone like with a lot of, clout or whatever. And so you do get like mixed results.
I don't think I would have liked Brian Fuller's Star Trek anyway, to be very clear. Considering Brian Fuller is the one that made the decision to make the Klingons completely bald and what have you, unless he had some like decision, like some legitimate, he had some plot lines set up behind that, some justification behind all of the aesthetic changes. If he didn't have anything, then I wouldn't have liked this Star Trek anyway, because he seemed like he wanted to just completely change things up.
Yeah, I don't know how much of the Klingon redesign was his idea, but I mean, let's face it, Brian Fuller was responsible for some of the best episodes of Voyager, and he was the script director or whatever for a number of seasons. Did some really, really good work with the show. I do want to say quickly to the point of getting fans to make something. We're now in the position where I think people who care about the franchise are in senior positions of power within the franchise. A bit like, with Star Wars with Dave Filoni. He's a huge Star Wars fan. But there is a. I mean, this has happened in Star Trek before. Rick Berman wasn't really a huge Star Trek fan. He was a Paramount executive, but he brought us. I mean, we can talk about Rick Berman's attributes and qualities or lack of qualities, but he was responsible for shepherding the greatest era of Star Trek up until this point. When you put fans in charge of things, though, and we've got this before with Lord and Miller when they went and directed or tried to direct Solo, they wanted to make a fun, silly Star Wars movie that paid a lot of homage to Star Wars. Basically, it sounds like it would have been Lower Decks, but in the Star Wars universe. Kathleen Kennedy and the Star Wars executives who aren't fans just got involved and just said, "No, you have no idea. We've got no faith in you. Out the door. Bring in Ron Howard, who could direct anything." So it's a fine balance. It's a hard balance. But I think we're getting there. And I think that Lower Decks is a good example of what you can do if you get experienced Trek veterans and people that love the franchise to write for it. And we're reaping the benefits
I
of that
also
right
think
now.
that CBS are very confident at the moment. They're very confident with Discovery and Picard. I think they're happy with the results from that. And they were kind of like on a, who cares if Lower Decks doesn't work? Like, let's give them 2 seasons. They do the 2 seasons. If it turns out that it's shit, we'll stop it. We'll leave it be, and whatever. We'll carry on doing our other things that we know are working currently. And I really do think it was just kind of like, yeah, if it works, we can.
Not on Da Vinci's watch, let me tell you. And
I really do think that
these are really we really went deep into the behind the scenes rabbit hole, and I tend to stay away from it because I'm very ignorant when it comes to, like, I don't follow that. I'm more of a in universe kind of guy. But no, it's totally fine. I actually also at the same time, this is a casual and informal conversation, so I encourage it. But we do try to keep it at an hour, so I just want to kind of like bring us home on the home stretch, if you will, and just say that, like, it's clear that this was like pretty much everyone's favorite episode of the season, and we've pretty much talked about it. It's like delved off into this awesome branches. Someone said in the comments this is like the beginning of a 2-parter, so next, that seems right to me. Do you think that what are your predictions for the last episode? Do you think it's going to end on a cliffhanger, or are we going to get like a resolution, a nice little bow on top on season 1? Go, just free thought about the next episode, if you will, and do a little speculation.
I hope they don't do a cliffhanger, personally. I would like them to wrap the season up, and then, I mean, there's obviously going to be plot lines that are going to be carried over. It's character development that we have to address, etc. But I would like them to not end on anything like a cliffhanger.
Yeah, I agree. I think sometimes, I mean, cliffhangers are cool, cliffhangers are fine, but nothing screams confidence than ending a show with an episode that just finishes. It's a way. It's literally like putting a bow on it and just saying, "This is season 1. Take it, leave it." I feel like from talking about international distribution for a second and the lack of, if you have one show which is just no cliffhangers, no nothing, I think that's going to strengthen their kind of pushing the show internationally. I think that's another thing. Cliffhangers are done to death. I'd like to see no cliffhanger for Lower Decks, but in terms of a 2-parter, it does look from the previews like we're going to be getting a bit of a more low-key affair. I know we've got the Exocomms, which looks really, really cool.
I'm so excited about that.
I will say this, as much as I loved Crisis Point, and it is my favorite episode of the season so far, I don't want these episodes every single week. This was a special event episode. One thing I wanted to say earlier is if you jump into this episode at a point during the movie, it genuinely feels like a movie. Genuinely, like Sean was saying, with the grainy effects, the letterboxing.
Well, and even the phaser fights were epic. Everything was just like notched up a level. Yeah, it was like really cool.
It was sensationally done, and it feels cinematic. It felt rich, and I don't want that every single week. I want low key, and then have like an event episode a season. This is the event episode of season 1.
Lots of good comments about this. Also, I'm hoping for a cliffhanger. I want an old school Berman era style to be continued on the end shot. We've got
Do that for
part of
season
part of the cliffhanger will be Boimler dropping Mariner's mom bomb with repercussions reverberating. I can't talk. Like, will she leave or will she stay?
Where are they gonna go with that? Like what?
Yeah.
Like, what? Like okay,
Hmm.
he knows,
Mhm.
but what does he know? How does
I
that
reckon,
impact him or anything on the ship in any way?
I reckon what will happen, and this is my speculation, is that Boimler is making a big deal out of it. Went a bit Scottish there for a second. Don't know what happened there. And it turns out this is my prediction that at the end of the episode, turns out that every single person on the Cerritos, apart from Boimler, knew that Mariner and Beckett were.
That would work. That works as a trope.
Yeah, and then it's kind of like, and then the final shot is like, Shaq's just being like, "Who cares? Who cares? Let's go."
I'm busy.
Yeah,
I like that. You guys, those are really good predictions. Let's see if they come through. Peanut butter hamper is the new cellar door. Do you guys have any idea what I'm talking about? Excellent.
yeah.
So let's give it. We give ratings on this show. So I'm gonna go
exact
first.
same conversation.
What's that?
Shax, like I don't know what does he try to tell Shax? Rutherford tries to talk to Shax at some point.
Oh,
and Shax is
like piss off! I'm busy. I'm angry.
pissed off. I'm pissed off. I don't want to talk to you. Oh my god, it's so real. We had the exact same conversation.
Rutherford is just so.
Oh, Eugene Cordero, the voice acting.
He's so good at it. I love Rutherford. He's probably becoming quickly my
It's
favorite
3K
character.
might be right. Ransom knows it's his daughter. Like he knows it's her daughter.
Yeah,
and that's
I think
probably
I'm
the
gonna.
only reason why he didn't go after her and try to initiate.
I'm gonna put my bet on. I'm gonna agree with Chuck Lad, and my bet is going in the pool of everyone knows except Boynes. I think everyone's gonna know except Boynes.
It's the perfect summation of Boimler, isn't it? Boimler just being this guy that's trying so hard but knows nothing really. Ultimately,
I really legitimately felt bad for him at the end of this episode.
It's really good
when he walks out them.
He's a genius too, like thinking of creating algorithms for all the different crews so he knows how they'll react. It's crazy.
I've been saying that Lower Decks doesn't really do or address like social commentary or like social issue. Well, it hasn't been like on the moral and ethical dilemmas the same way as older Star Trek has. That's fine because it's a comedy show. That's not the point of it. And we keep on pointing out how it does talk about like the lower class, well, not like the working class, etc. This episode really dealt with like the therapeutic aspects of the holodeck, and I think it dealt really well with all of that, like just mental illness or mental health.
I think there's scope for Lower Decks to tell those stories as well. I mean, to tell more of those stories. But the thing is I'm of the opinion that you don't need to wrap everything up in today's society. We need escapism, especially in 2020. And Lower Decks has been that tonic that I've so desperately needed week in, week out this year. I mean, when we get to Discovery and they start telling Brexit-esque stories, then I'm going to need to hold someone's hand. Well, maybe not right now, but
that's why the Dark Crystal was so good for me. It's because the Dark Crystal addresses, like the Dark Crystal has very poignant issues in it with like there's like death and war and all of this, but you can relate things if you're really looking for it. But when you watch the Dark Crystal, you're just literally transported to somewhere else. You're living in this other world that it's all puppets as well, so nothing feels connected to this world in any way, and that's why it was the perfect escapism. I was so looking forward to the second season.
And they cancelled it, didn't they? Bastards.
Yeah. I would have completely needed that, especially now.
That was so heartbreaking for poor Sean. I actually had to message him. All right, ratings. Here I go. I go first. What was the highest rating I gave, Sean? Do you remember?
Give like a 10.8, which just counts as a 10.
This one gets a 10.9.
Is there a lens flare on your 10.9?
What's that?
Is there a lens flare on your 10.9?
There was a huge. Here, let me try to do.
I think Sean and I do the. We do normal ratings, don't we?
Yeah,
we
the real ratings.
Yeah, we.
My friends who watch the show like to call it the real ratings when you guys give ratings. So let's hear the real ratings, guys.
How many Picards do you give it out of 10?
Oh goodness. Well, are we talking TNG era Picards or are we talking Picards?
No, I'm being
Let's
mean.
let's stay away. Are we doing a 10-star rating
10
system?
scale.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's a 10 scale.
10 scale. And can I do halves? Can I do halves?
You can, halves points. You can do whatever. You
Cool.
can even, whatever. It's
Cool.
cool.
Strongest episode, considerably strongest episode of the season, but I'm giving it an 8.5 out of 10.
I agree. That is the correct answer. I give it an 8.5.
The audience mostly agrees. We got an 8.5 sevens. We've got, let's see, we've got another 7 here from Alexandra, a 9.72 for the Electra Complex, which we didn't talk about, but thanks for pointing that out, Stress Free K and Alexandra. Great show for us. We got a great show, guys. Thank you so much, All-Star Guru. Ian May, Starfleet Boy doesn't recognize the arbitrary constraints that people usually impose on ratings. It's true.
Well,
It's
lives outside the constructs of what ratings are.
Starfleet
He likes
Boy
to
can
have
do whatever he
ratings.
wants. It's his live stream. He can do what he wants. It's his
I'm a
universe.
Rules.
We're
I'm
just
a
playing
lover,
in it.
not a fighter. I'm a lover, not a fighter, everyone.
He also
Anyway.
has a strange way of doing averages. He's like 8.5, 8.5, 10.8. That's a 17 average.
Can I just say, by the way, where did this hour go? I've had so much fun.
Thank
so much
you,
fun
I know.
talking with you guys. We didn't even talk about the episode.
No, we really didn't. But
Sometimes
we
we
do
forget
love it. Sometimes the conversation begs us to go in a different direction. Anyways, with my fancy lens flare here, because I've just upgraded the show now to HD here.
Is I steal from everyone and I don't give it back. And it goes left. Yes.
And also 100% pain. I mean, there's so many so
Crash the ship rolls.
to see more about it, go see all the videos of all the great creators, including Treklad, who thank you for coming and staying up late and hanging out with us, Treklad. We really appreciate it. Sean is going to do his review and Easter eggs, probably dropping next week on Tuesday. Tomorrow, as part of TQIF, Fathery, who's in the chats, Starfleet Boy mentioned see, I did it before you told me, Fathery. No, I'm really bad, but TQIF starting at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to be on Text Track talking about Lower Decks, and I'll wear the other shirt that I got from the Lower Decks shirt collective. And then after that, we're going to do Starfleet Boy After Dark, and who knows what the F we're going to talk about then, but it's probably going to be something Lower Decks or Star Trek related. But anyways, it was a real pleasure, gentlemen. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that I missed that you want to promote before we go?
No, just if you haven't subscribed to Starfleet Boy, subscribe to Starfleet Boy. If you haven't subscribed to Trek on the Tube, subscribe to Trek on the Tube. If you haven't subscribed to me, I'm trying to get the 500 subs by the end of October. So do me a solid and help me out. But I just want to say to you, Starfleet Boy, thank you so much for having me, and always a pleasure, Sean. Look forward to speaking more Star Trek with you for years and years and years to come.
Yes, there definitely will be content enough to do that.
And Starfleet Boy was there, and there's also the Doctor, which is co-host on most of the original series discussions, and we talk about the future of the future. How
it's very meta.
The future, it is. It's very meta, and we actually come to a conclusion somehow. It's a great discussion.
I loved it. It was a good discussion. I forgot that we had it.
We did it a while back, and
it was a long time ago. I forgot that we have it.
Anyway, I wanted to put out the Nick conversations and the Dan Gunther conversations, you know.
Anyways, I want to say on video that I'm halfway through Treklad's Networking on Nimbus 3's latest episode with Rashid Uzaman. Is that how you say it?
Rashid Uzaman. Yeah. Top
Uzaman.
guy.
Yes, I've been a huge fan of him as a person. If you don't follow him, go follow him. So shout out to Rashid and shout out to Networking on Nimbus 3. Go support all the pods, all the things. We're all here for it. So live long and prosper. And we'll see you next time.